views. I think I was two of the views. So don't worry too much about what you say. It literally is like yelling in the what is the saying? The tree falls in the forest, does it make a noise? That kind of thing. We do have a number of items though at CMAP that we would like to bring to your guys' I guess attention is not the right word, but we would actually like some real discussion and input on a couple of things that we would do. So right now, let me kind of go around the room and let's try to do the intros just real quick. Just say what agency you're with. If, however, you haven't been on this call before, if you want to just say a little bit about what you do, that would be more than appreciated. So I'll just call the names that way we don't have to guess who's next. Mark Pitstick, and you'll have to
Morning.
unmute yourself. And Mark's with the RTA. And for those who don't know me, I'm Russell Petroviak, the CMAP staff person who runs this committee and who is in charge of our air quality program here at CMAP. Uh, like I said, I'm just going to go, and unfortunately, the screen will keep changing, so it'll be interesting if I miss anybody. Jen, I got you next.
Hi, Jen Miller. I'm with CMAP. I think
Okay.
I was in one of these meetings before, but otherwise I'm
Jen's
fairly.
going to be presenting towards the end of our agenda on the RCPs. Zach, I got you next.
Hi, all. Zach Edelman, Executive Director of the Lake Michigan Air Directors Consortium, or LADCO. We're a regional air quality planning organization for the Great Lakes region.
Excellent. And Michael, Leslie, I have you next.
Hey, Michael Leslie here. I'm at the air program at US EPA doing conformity and mobile source stuff.
Mr. Jansen,
Mark Jansen with Line Co.
Jose,
Jose Rodriguez, CMAP.
Rory, I got you next, and then Doug.
I'm Rory Davis with the Illinois EPA with the Regulatory Development Unit, and we do all kinds of state implementation planning and regulatory actions.
Excellent.
Doug Ferguson, CMAP.
Carly,
Carly Cazzato, CMAP.
Goshen, I think you're new.
Hi, I'm Gosen Chen, Illinois EPA. I work under Rory.
Okay, excellent. Jason Lang,
Hi, Jason Lang, a sustainability specialist at IDOT.
all right. And I'm assuming TD is Terry Dixon, our very own.
It is. I'm a little under the weather this morning, but good morning, everyone. Terry Dixon, RAP.
All right. And then we have our air quality specialist at CMAP, UZ.
Joe CMAP.
Uh, Ben Sperry at IDOT, you're next.
Hello, good morning, Ben Sperry. I got Bureau of Design and Environment, Project Level Air Quality, and Noise Specialist. Thank you.
Excellent. We got Matt Harrell at IEPA. I don't hear you, Matt. I know you're unmuted, but I don't hear you. All right. Sarah?
Good morning, Sarah Stolpe. I work on the Transportation Improvement Program here at CMAP with Russell.
All right. And then is it Andrina? Did I say? I probably said that wrong. My apologies. Pinedo? Is that, I believe that person's from Illinois EPA?
Yeah, Andorini Pinedo, or
Andrini.
Ando. She's also under me. She's in our inventory section. She's recently gotten moves training, so uh, we have had Dave Mahelsick in our modeling section doing moves, and Steve King in our VIM section doing moves. And so I'm hoping Ando can get up to speed, and then we'll have someone in-house in my group that can start doing that for us.
Excellent. Kelsey?
Kelsey Pudlock. I'm a senior planner at CMAP, and this is my first meeting. I recently worked on our climate action plan, so just listening in and hopefully learning from you all today.
Okay. And then we got Craig and then Amy.
Hey, Craig Heather, Principal Travel Modeler at CMAP.
And then Amy.
Hi, good morning. Amy Lee. I'm Deputy of RAP. I do whatever
Russ tells me to do.
That is so not true. John Paul.
Good morning, John Paul Dupla, Metropolitan Planning Specialist with FHWA Illinois Division.
All right, then we got the one and only Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you, Russell. Chris Schmidt, Air Quality Manager at the Illinois Department of Transportation Bureau of Planning.
Okay, and then I think last is John. I think that's everybody.
Yeah, good morning. John Hodson with CMAP on the TIP team.
Okay, I think that's everybody. Did I miss anybody? If so, please speak up. Okay, thank you all for participating in today's interagency consultation meeting, which I can remember the days, Michael, where it was just like 5 or 6 of us in a room, and now we have maybe 15, 20 people on the call. So is some value in having a virtual meeting. It allows more participants. So I don't think that's a bad thing. I'm fine with that. The first thing on the agenda is the conformity amendment. I'm going to try and attempt to share my screen. I do admit that I do mess this up quite a bit. In the packet today is a link. If you clicked on that link, it's going to go to the website where the projects are located. And let me see if I can't share my screen. It's so hard to see. That was not it. That's not it. Conformity amendment. I think this is it. But I need to. All right, so that should be the website, and then I need to go to here. All right. So hopefully what you're seeing now is, and I got to move a share bar here over here. What you're seeing is the public website. Does it say CMAP tip 2025? Okay, good. So we have a new ETIP database. If we have time at the end of the meeting, I'll go over that in a little bit more detail. But the projects that are on the current conformity amendment are all listed here. You can now, on our ETIP website, you can actually click on each one and it'll load what's going on with each project. So this is what's available for the public to see. It has the history of the project, when it was changed before. This one's gone through conformity. This will be the third time now. It has the funding history, a overview, stuff like that. So you can also comment on it. So we have a thing at the top here where it says notes. To submit a comment, email us before, and this is when it closes on December 18th. Thus far, I had Doug check this morning. We have not received any comments. So that's not uncommon. We typically don't receive any comments, and I'm fine with that. But it is out there for the public, and it's probably a little bit easier for the public to see that. So the other thing I'm going to share, and let me probably stop sharing now. Yeah. All right. Now the next thing I'm going to share is the actual memo itself. I did attach the memo right at the beginning of about an hour ago or something like that. I realized that I forgot to attach the memo. What I attached is a link to the projects. So the memo is actually one of the reasons you guys are here. So this is our typical memo. There's nothing that you haven't seen really here. It lists the projects. Those are the same projects that are on the website. And at the end of the memo, and we're doing this with Moose 4 still, it has our emissions budgets. It's draft because it's still out for public comment. It hasn't been approved. As you can see, we are well within our budgets, but we're getting a little bit close on 2025. Luckily, we're at the end of 2025. This will be our last conformity for 2025. But both VOCs and NOx are getting a little bit tight. We will be adding 2026 at the request of Illinois EPA, and we'll have to see. I would imagine the number is going to be very similar to what we see for 2025, and we'll be using the same SIP budgets for those. So that's where we're at. As you can see, anything after 2030 really winds up being quite a bit. It's really not an issue. Once we get to 2030 and beyond, and as I said, we're using Moose 4. The technology, the car fleet turnover, all that kind of stuff really kicks in, and you can really see pretty much we're not anywhere close to our budgets. So in that regard, we're in pretty good shape. Are there any questions on that? No, good. Okay, let me stop sharing for a second. All right. So that was pretty quick. Getting back to the agenda, and let me see if I can't move this over here. The next thing that we want to spend a little bit of time on is going to be how we're doing moves. So how we're doing moves right now is we are using moves 4. And one of the main things in moves 4 that requires a level of assumptions on CMAP's part, for those who use moves, there are kind of a, some specific files that are more influential on the emissions front than others. So I like to look at it or describe it as kind of a three-legged stool: average speed, VMT, and then the vehicle fleet mix. Those are kind of the three main drivers. When you change those things, you can see noticeable changes in emissions. There are other ones that are kind of related a little bit, and one of those is the AVFT file that can really have a pretty good influence on emissions. If you're not familiar, it's the Advanced Vehicle Fuels Tech Alternative Vehicle Fuel and Technology file. That is basically where we tell moves what's an EV, what's an E85, what's diesel, what's gasoline. It basically says what percentage of the fleet uses what vehicle mix. We have the 2025 vehicle data, so we have a really good baseline for what the fleet composition is within our region. And Mark, you may want to mute. Just saying. Um, uh, what we don't know, however, is what the fleet vehicle mix fuels will be like in the future. Um, we have to use the AVFT tool, which is a new tool in Moves, to predict that. And there are a variety of ways to do that. So I'm going to share our screen real quick, and we have a couple of slides that UZ was nice enough to put together that's going to walk you through a little bit about our approach. And then what we'd like this group to do is to kind of say, okay, we're okay with that, or we'd like to see you do something very different. I understand if everybody doesn't understand what it is that we're talking about. I get that, but we still got to present it anyways. So let me do that. Let me see if I can share again. Whoops. No, that's not the right one. Stop sharing. So that was the presentation. All right. So hopefully what you are all seeing is AVFT, Alternative Vehicle Fuel and Technology. Is that correct? It's kind of, I can't see both screens. So once I go into share mode, I only see nothing. So this, as I said, the AVFT tool, which is a new feature in Moose 4, and it's also in Moose 5, it allows us to it enables CMAP to project forward the mix of vehicles that will be using different types of fuels. So right now it's gasoline, diesel, E85, compressed natural gas, battery. These are your plug-ins, and then fuel cell, which are really your EVs. Are actually the battery electric are your EVs. I think the fuel cells. Actually, let me rephrase that. Plug-in hybrids are gasoline, the way Moose treats it. So, as I said, the primary purpose is to project the future fuel type distributions by combining local historic data with projected national trends. We don't really know what the future of EV sales will be in our region. We have some aspirational goals, but we don't use that for moves. Through different programs that the EPA is aware of, they have created some what they think are going to be national projections, and then that's partly how we use it to model into the future. But we use their tool. So, for example, if you're modeling the calendar year 2030, moves require fuel type distribution for every model year between 2000 and 2030. So, from 2025 back, we have those, but we don't have those for new vehicle sales. It's a guess. So, there are 4 different ways that we can model future AVFT or fuel distributions within the vehicle fleet mix. One is called the proportional. That's actually the way we do it at CMAP. This one projects the future distributions based on the proportional differences between local data and national trends in the last complete model year. And since we have 2025 data, we have what we think is a fairly robust uh, set of baseline data. The national average just applies national default fuel type distributions directly to all projected model years, disregarding local history for future years. We don't think that that's applicable to what we do in Illinois. We think it has an outsized, I think it has an outsized influence from California and other places that are EV heavy and maybe not reflective of local, what we see locally. Known fractions allows the manual entry of specific fuel fractions. You'd really have to know, and you'd have to have some sort of crystal ball to be able to do that for the future. I don't know how you could do that in a defensible way, unless you had legal requirements in your state that mandated certain things. California has that. We do not have that. So using the known fractions thing would not be something I would put forth. And then the constant, it applies the distribution from the last couple model years to all future years, assumes zero change. This is actually how we used to do that before there was a tool. We didn't know how to project it forward, so we just held constant whatever things were in the last year that we had vehicle fleet information for. So again, this is a little bit more on the methodologies. Like I said, we use the proportional one, or that's what we've been using. There are ways that the national average can be used when we don't have local data or we have such limited amounts. The national average could be good at filling in gaps, either from past, in which we didn't get good data from, or for future projections. Like I said, we don't use the known fractions or the constant. The constant is what we used to use. It's very conservative. It shows no growth. We know that over the last 4 or 5 years, that if we had used constant, we would be way underrepresenting the EVs as a proportion, especially of the passenger cars. And then, like I said, CMAP's model right now is using the proportional. We have the Illinois Secretary of State data from 2025. It has the VINs, which is what we use, the year, the make, the county, the zip code, all that kind of stuff. We use a VIN decoding process, and I think we've gone over that in detail at previous meetings. So we have a pretty robust way of decoding the VINs, and within the VINs, it actually tells us what is the fuel for that vehicle, what is it designed to be used for. As I said, we use the proportional, but we do have to use national average for some stuff that we don't have good data for. And single unit long haul trucks and combination long haul trucks are what we use national for. And this is what it looks like. So the actual file itself, just so you're aware, so what we have here is the 2025, 2030, 2040, and 2050. And these trend lines, you can see how things change. Because this is proportionality, one is 100% down to zero being 0%. And you can see by each type of vehicle, these are just type 21s, what we would call passenger cars. So you can see gasoline is decreasing. Right now, EVs are a little bit higher percentage than maybe they will be in the future. We don't know that. But you can see battery electric is really where it's going in increasing. What's going down a lot is the E85s. So while EVs might be increasing, and you can kind of see a steady rate, that's because that's how the EPA tool projects that out. And this is for each model year. So this is not the total fleet composition, but 2030 is kind of a high point. That's because that's what's built into the model. There were, as we all know, EV incentives. They have now gone away. The model can't be adjusted the way the Moose model works. They'd have to come out with a new Moose model to adjust that. So it assumed that the incentive program that was on the books would continue until a certain point in time. Once that was phased out, you would then see EV sales decline and then kind of a slow, steady increase just because the technology might be more attractive to consumers or whatever it might be. That's also the same time that we would see gasoline sales decrease. And then they would go back up again when the incentives went away. That's what it looks like in our model today using the AVFT tool that EPA has put out there. Going forward, this is still the preferred approach that we have, but we know that it probably overestimates EVs in kind of the 2030 year. We don't really have a better way to do that. So for now, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. so that I can see everybody again and open it up for discussion. So, like I said, right now we probably are a little overestimating, but we don't have a better way to do that. So I'd be interested to hear from first our Rory and Michael, and then maybe Zach, if you have something that you can chime in on. We want to do this as well as we can, but we know that there's not a perfect way to do it. So I don't know if Michael or Rory, if one of you guys want to start.
I mean, I think your approach is as good as any, so that, I think we're okay with it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with the approach. I think if it was an easy thing, maybe you could smooth out that hump, but I don't think that's necessary for.
And for those who aren't aware, so CMAP processes the VINs for the whole state now, and we share that information once it's been processed as kind of moves inputs, and we've given it to IDOT and to Illinois EPA. So in terms of the baseline AVFT file, we're all using the same one. How it's used after that, this is how we're doing it. Hopefully, other agencies are taking a similar approach, but if they're not, there's four different approaches that are, all valid, I guess, on some level. Um, but we don't have any laws on the books, so the one that basically says if you have laws on the books, I would probably not advocate for. So I don't know, Rory, do you guys know how you're using it for future projections?
Sorry, using what?
How you're developing this file if you're for future years for we gave you 2025, but if you're modeling out past that, how you're creating this file. Do you know what methodology you guys are using?
I don't personally, and we don't have Steve or Dave Mahelsick on the phone. Um, I think. Oh,
Because I don't think we gave you 2030 files.
No, no.
Okay. Well,
My
now
gut
you know
my
how we're
gut
doing at
tells
least.
yeah, my gut tells me Steve would probably use the national, but
Okay.
we should verify that.
All right. And Zach, do you have anything you can about what we're doing? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, a couple of questions. When you say that you don't have any other way to do it, I think you mean you don't have any better data to
Well,
adjust the AVFT
yeah,
file
that's
with,
right.
right? Like you could crank the AVFT file and create any reality you want in the future. You just don't have defensible information that you think would
That's
support
correct.
changes. Okay. Um, CMAP's climate action plan. Like, where does that integrate into this? Is that just
It doesn't.
is that the aspirational thing that
Yeah,
you
that's
kind of
just a
referred to?
policy thing.
Yeah.
So while there are many laudable things in that, in terms of conformity,
Yeah.
we can't take we can't include that for conformity because it has to be stuff on the books, like
Gotcha.
legislatively passed, enforceable is always how I've looked at it. Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's basically we can't assume a certain thing in the future unless there's some sort of reason to believe that that's actually going to happen.
What's the state of Illinois' incentive rebate program or whatever it is? What is that at this point and its status? Do you know?
I'll defer to Rory.
Yeah, it's the same as it has been in past years. It's not. I forget what the dollar amount is, but I don't know that we could point to it and say this is driving it without the federal at the same time.
Like, are you taking credit in the SIP for the Illinois rebate program? Is that included
No,
in your SIP?
I don't believe so. I don't
So
think
yeah,
we are.
so and that's why we wouldn't do it. If it's not in the SIP, which was used to create our budgets, we're not gonna take credit for something they didn't take credit for. Or
Yeah.
or included, I should say. I don't know if credit's the right word, but included in our analysis assumptions. And plus that's statewide. So we don't know how it would apply to Northeast Illinois specifically. People could be getting the rebates anywhere, right?
I mean, it's not a trivial rebate, right? Like certainly it's having some impact on the market. I guess it's hard to parse because you've got both the federal and the state programs active right now. As the federal program expires, maybe we'll be able to understand how much is being driven by the state rebates.
So if the state included in their SIP, I
Yeah,
would be inclined to include it in what we do for conformity, and
yeah.
we would be that way I would have a defensible, consistent way to do it. So I guess that's what would lead me to change how we do it at CMAP, is if Illinois EPA in their attainment demonstrations or whatever it is, started including the rebate program as part of their, I don't know, mitigation measures, or I don't know where it would fit in.
So Rory, you included the federal tax incentive, tax rebate or whatever it was, a tax credit, but you did not include the state rebate in the SIP. Is that right?
Well, I think the federal is kind of built into moves,
Gotcha.
It
right?
is. That's why you see the dip, and then when it expires, EV sales decline per model year.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think I mean, I could check into this. I think we'd be disinclined to have it in the SIP just because it's legislated and if it were to go away in the future, I think we'd have to do another SIP submittal, and I don't know what that would look like.
No, and I'm
Much
not
like,
arguing. No, I'm not arguing for it, but I don't.
yeah,
From the permanent and enforceable standpoint, I mean, I don't think the federal tax credit or the state rebate are that different, right?
yeah,
So we can easily model it as a
Yeah.
scenario. We just can't do it for conformity.
Sure.
So
Okay.
more of a policy, what are the impacts of XYZ policies? We can certainly model it that way. But for regulatory and conformity purposes, right now we're not including that. It sounds like that's something that everybody else is comfortable with us doing too.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Thank.
All right. So that's our AVFT file discussion. That's our big moves update, so to speak, for how we're doing things. So it sounds like we are in agreement and affirming that what we're doing, everybody's comfortable with what we're doing. There is no better way to do it in terms of there's no crystal ball. We could shake the magic 8 ball maybe and see what that comes up with, but absent that. Now, the bigger, more robust discussion. All right, we are using moves 4. We have until December, let's see, I wrote this down, so I want to make sure I say it correctly. What day is it? December 11th, 2026 to switch to Moose 5. We have been reluctant to switch to Moose 5 in my direction. And I think CMAP's been we're all on the same page here because of some of the underlying assumptions. Let me try and share the screen again that are baked into um, move. Let me see. Hang on one second. Right slide up. So Moose 5 has some regulatory assumptions that Moose 4 does not have. Okay. So specifically, the light duty, medium duty pollutant rule, the heavy duty greenhouse gas emissions phase 3 rule. Those are things that, if we were to run Moose 5, it's likely that the emissions would be less because of these things that are baked into Moose 5. I know Illinois EPA is using Moose 5 for SIP because they're required to do that. We don't have to switch until around this time next year to Moose 5. That being said, we have a new plan, a regional transportation plan, that we're going to be conforming in the spring. If we were to conform that using Moose 4, the current model that we're using, it would not include these rules, but it would be that conformity. Well, it has to go through a long public comment period, whatever it is. It gets approved in October. So the new plan, if we were to use Moose 4, would be approved in October. Right after that, we start the next conformity, the fall conformity, the one that we just discussed at the top of the agenda here. And we would be using Moose 5 to do that because we have to switch to that in December. So that would be, this time we would be using Moose 5. So the very first conformity under the new plan would be using Moose 5, but the plan itself would be conformed using Moose 4 if we don't change anything. Now, it might seem easy, just change to Moose 5, but it does have some of these underlying regulatory impacts that baked into it. It might be showing things to be a little bit more rosy than what we would think that they might be. Some of these things that are on the screen there are up for reconsideration by the current administration. It might be going away. The other thing is we evaluated what we call the regional capacity projects, I think RCPs. Um, and each project was evaluated and given one of there's a whole variety of criteria that they were evaluated under, things like safety and stuff like that. Emissions was one of them. And we developed emission rates from Moves 4 and applied those to those projects. So theoretically, we would be evaluating or had evaluated the RCPs using Moose 4 emission rates. But then when we would be conforming, whatever becomes the final RCPs, if we were to switch to Moose 5 for our spring conformity, we would be conforming those with a different model. So that's another consideration. I don't think that's a big concern, but it is a consideration as we'll get different results than what we evaluated the projects with thus far. So, I mean, at some point we have to switch anyways. So on some level, that might be a moot point. I think so I'm going to stop sharing the screen here. And I think what we really would like to have is somewhat of a discussion, starting again with Michael, Leslie, and Rory about just what Moo's model they would like to see the new plan conformed with, or their thoughts on it. This isn't determinative, but we want to take your input into our decision-making process, and the pros and cons of either one. And I don't think, and I'm going to start with you, Michael, I don't believe there's a Move 6 under discussion. I have not heard anything about a new Moose model coming out. Um, so, Michael, I'll throw it to you.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard anything to that effect. I don't have a strong opinion on which one you use. I think, like you mentioned, there are some things on the books that are under consideration, reconsideration, I should say, and we, uh, sort of the Pollyannish way to look at it is those are still in the books until they're not. So.
As is the requirement of us to switch to
Yeah,
the new
so
Moose
the
model.
switch is gonna happen, and I know a lot of MPOs are sort of taking your position that we're gonna grind with 4 as long as we can, and with those assumptions, especially on the AVFT tool, so some of the defaults in 5 will be slightly different than 4, so I'm not opposed to that.
Rory, what do you have? What's your opinions? Or
I'm not opposed to you guys sticking with 4. I think we have to move on to 5 for our attainment demonstration. So I think you're always going to be chasing with these models. I don't know if there will be a 5.1 that just kind of tweaks 5 in the future that would move some things around. I don't know how, like I said, I don't know
I know
how
they just issued a
difficult that
patch,
is. Yeah.
but it doesn't change any of that kind of underlying methodology.
Yeah, and I think the other thing the difference between the SIP world and the conformity world is, well, the SIP is doing a pretty near term year, right? Uh, so, you know, that's not going to change dramatically between 4 and 5. But when you're looking at 2050 for your plan, that's going to
Yeah.
change, so.
So yeah, we are looking out to 2050. And, we do have those different budgets after 2035 that are part of the '08 attainment. Um, you know, I think that I was leaning towards recommending that we would maybe go towards Moves 5 just because I wanted the plan to do the emissions modeling with the most current um, model. There are other things other than some of the regulatory changes. There's some model enhancements. I think each time they come up with a new MOVES model, there's better information that they can do for estimating emissions, especially on some of the non-ozone stuff that we don't have to do. But PM, I know they made improvements on breakware and some other stuff. They also, there is a difference, and Rory, you know this, and Michael too. We're modeling 30 years worth of vehicle data in Moose 4, and it's 40 years in Moose 5. That is I don't think that that's an insignificant change. It may not be huge, but it is a change that's kind of somewhere in the middle on how it affects stuff. And as we look to 2050, and especially on the truck side, I think that has a little bit of input. We haven't done a lot of testing with Moose 5. We've done a little bit, but we need to do more robust testing to see how that would shake out. Um, but what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, from both Rory and Michael, is that if we did the plan with Moose 4, no issues doing conformity for the plan with Moose 4, and then switching to Moose 5 the next time we do conformity after the plan has been adopted. I'm not saying that's what we're going to do, but that's what you guys are saying.
That's fine.
And if we did Moose 5, there's also no issues. Is that correct?
For sure. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with what you're proposing at all.
All right.
Hey,
Zach?
can I weigh in? Yeah. I think this is probably going to be solved for you by the time you get to the point of needing to run moves 5. I don't see EPA keeping that version of moves around because they're in the process of rolling back those two big rules.
Yeah.
And the impacts of the light, medium, and the heavy duty rules have a significant impact starting in 2030.
Yeah,
So
especially
you
on
don't even
NOx.
you don't even have to project out to 2050. You start seeing it in 2030 in a
Yeah.
big way. Mostly because those rules were forcing electrification for the most part, right? And so
Yeah.
those are going away. Like if this administration is moving in the direction where we see them headed, we're already seeing that. So we're having this parallel conversation in kind of the SIP modeling world. And a little inside baseball is there's a national emissions collaborative where we're trying to figure out how to do SIP modeling and projecting out into the 2030s for SIP modeling. And in that collaborative, we're working with EPA to basically figure out what the next future year modeling platform is going to include. And we floated this concept called a de minimis projection, which is a projection of emissions that removes any major national rules. And it mostly applies to mobile sources and electricity generating units, to some extent to big industrial sources as well, but it's mostly applicable to mobile sources. And the idea is like, there's been pretty major swings moving from administration to administration with how on-road vehicle emissions are being regulated, and like we can't keep, it's really hard to plan around these 4-year major changes to mobile source emissions, right? And so when EPA bakes these regulatory programs into these versions of moves that only come out every couple of years, it's really hard to work with that tool. So the idea of the de minimis concept is, and it's still conversations in process, talking with OTAC and now used to be OAQPS, now the Office of State Air Partnerships. Like, can you run moves without these regulatory programs? You're just projecting VMT, projecting activity, including all of sort of the latest and greatest data and tech updates. Like you mentioned with Moves 5, we want to preserve like the technology updates and the underlying data updates, but we want to run it without these national rules. And then enable us with they allow us to layer rules on as needed and as we think they would be implemented through local and regional strategies. So you've got areas like Denver, for example, who are, implementing the California mobile source rules. We need to make a tool that's more flexible with moves. Like, how can we evolve moves to be more flexible to allow us to kind of layer on control strategies, and don't sort of hem us in to a federal strategy that may go away every 4 years, right? So this conversation is ongoing, and I think it could have some implications with how conformity is done as well. If we can convince OTAC to think about developing the next versions of moves in a way that provide more flexibility with how control programs are
I mean,
implemented
are
in the
they
model.
looking to develop the next version of moves? Because I mean, we're all on the same calls for the
Yeah,
most part. I'm not hearing
we
anything.
no, I haven't heard anything either, but we're talking to them about it.
Okay.
I don't, this is based on nothing, but I don't see, I don't see them keeping moves 5 out there for like the next conformity round.
I mean, they've never repealed the moves.
No, I mean they would You know,
Come up
in
with a new
theory, it'd
version.
be like, yeah, it'd be a new version at with a point something. So it'd be
Totally.
5.1, which is a major revision.
Yeah.
You know, that's
Versus
what
the
they.
patches that they just sent out.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, I know whenever somebody asks the folks at on those MJO calls, nobody is forthcoming that there's any changes to moves coming, and they defer and go, let's go talk about the NEI.
Well, rulemaking hasn't played out, right? So like we're experiencing the same thing, right? Like there's
Yeah.
not a whole lot that they can tell us when we're talking with staffers at EPA until the rulemaking actually happens. But you know, we're all watching. We're all seeing where things are headed, right?
All right. IDOT, do you guys want to weigh in here on, or FTA? I mean, I don't think the FTA is here, but John Paul, do you guys want to weigh in here where we discuss which moves model to conform the plan to? And would you guys like to offer any insights, Barrett, Ben?
I don't have anything to add. I definitely defer to you all.
Okay.
I'll defer to you all as your experts on this subject matter, so I have nothing.
John Paul, I think you were on here. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I would also concur with that, the approaches are being discussed, whether it's version 4, version 5. It seems like everything is being discussed here openly and kind of the pros and cons of it per se. So I don't have anything additional at this point.
Okay. All right. Well, what we're gonna do is we're gonna internally discuss it at CMAP, both the pros and cons in a little more detail, what it means. We might do some testing so we can compare models, just see what things are, and then pick a course of direction. What I will do then is once we've decided which model we're gonna do the plan with, for the spring conformity, I'll send out an email and let everybody know. And that way, though, if anybody has any concerns, or if something is changing that things change all the time, we can always call another meeting and revisit this. But absent something major changing, I think that that's the approach that we'll do is we'll kind of discuss this more internally at CMAP, make a decision, let you guys know what we'd like to do, and give you one last chance to kind of, you know, provide input, I guess. But we'll do it without having to have a meeting. It'll just be by email if people are okay with that. All right. Excellent. And what Zach brought up, which is, I think, a really good point. Unfortunately, we work in the conformity world, which is the regulatory environment, and we can't just change things as we would like. However, going to the next item on the agenda, this is a good segue into the regulatory world, which is the 2015 ozone NAAQS updates. Rory, I think I'm going to turn that over to you first, okay?
As far as Chicago goes, I don't know that we have a great update. We're not very close to getting into attainment, so we are kind of we owe a attainment demonstration by January 1st. I don't know if I'm breaking news here with Mike, but we're probably going to be a little late on that one. We have been concentrating on getting a redesignation package in for the St. Louis area. So in that area, we needed to do an exceptional event demonstration for one day. And so um, we're pretty confident we're going to get concurrence on that. So that's kind of been an all-out effort to get a couple major things done by the deadline because that has some consequences down there. As far as Chicago, we are bumped up to serious. Um, in in the Chicago area, we've been serious before, so we have not. Well, at least for VOC rules, we're pretty much set. As far as NOx rules, we did our NOx racked rules last year and submitted those in May of this year. And in that rulemaking, we went down to a 50-ton threshold for stationary sources, which is the requirement for Sirius. So we didn't have to do it at that time, but we did. In St. Louis, we might have some people that are a little bit miffed if if that wasn't necessary, but we need the reductions. Um, so I think we're in pretty good shape as far as getting an attainment demonstration for Chicago in before it causes, a lot of trouble for US EPA. We're hoping to get that um, very early in the next year, have that signed off and submitted to US EPA.
Michael, you have anything to add to that?
No, no. I think we've been working with Rory on some of the St. Louis stuff, and we've been talking about the serious requirements. So it all
But we
sounds good.
are going to, and Rory, we've had some discussions on this. CMAP is going to start modeling 2026 um, for the plan. 2026, when we do it in the spring, will be a year that we model for. 2025 obviously is, in a couple weeks done with. But we are going to add that at Rory's request.
Yeah, and because the serious requirements going to set up a 2026 analysis year. So
Is there any other years that we need to be considering?
not no, because you'll have sort of an out year with the 2008 plan. So it's the
Yeah, so we
sort of
have
intermittent.
2030, 2035, 2040, and 2050.
Yeah.
And then we're going to be adding 2026 as our
Yep.
first year. Okay. After 2026, we only do conformity twice a year. Is 2027 or 2028 going to become a thing? It takes us a while to kind of prepare, so that's why I'm asking.
It should not be. I think the next year would be
29.
Yeah, 29.
Okay. And that's only if we get bumped up.
Again, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, to severe.
In the next bump up, so we go serious, what is because then there's like gradations, right?
The next one would be
Yes.
severe.
Yeah.
But there's more than one severe.
2028, would it be 20? Yeah. We'd probably do it sometime in 2028.
Okay. And that would be for the 27, 26, and 25 ozone seasons?
The attainment date is in 2027.
Yeah.
So it's
So that means it's
24,
20,
25,
24,
26.
25, 26.
Yeah.
25 wasn't too bad for ozone. It wasn't great, but it wasn't horrible. I don't know how exceptional events factor into it. I did see a variety of monitors that had more than had more than three violations, but nothing in the 80s, I don't think, for
So
it's a design value.
So I mean, there's a almost it's almost certain that Chicago is going to get bumped up from serious to severe. Because we know what the fourth highest needs to be in the 2026 ozone season for Chicago. We call this the critical value, right? Because you average the three.
I have a spreadsheet that tracks it. I think it's
Yeah,
it's like 60.
At
Chilwaukee?
Chilwaukee Prairie's 58.
It's 58. Okay.
It's gonna hit 58 in April.
Yeah.
Maybe March.
It'll stay above that more than 4 times.
Evanston is 64. There's several sites
Evanston
in
and
Chicago.
Southwest, I think, are the two other ones that are pretty high up there. Southwest has become a problematic one in terms of the numbers.
Yeah, Evanston is kind of the worst. Well, I mean, if you see a critical value in the 60s in Chicago, you pretty much know that it's gonna get hit.
Yeah.
And there's several in Chicago.
And Michael, would you concur?
Yeah.
It's fair enough. I guess
I mean, how
more
would we
detail.
not see a fourth high ozone value in the 50s in Chicago? Like, it would need to be like a nuclear winter or something like that. It would have to be a freezing summer.
Well, I guess where I'm going with this, and let me rephrase.
Yeah.
The 58 is based on the fourth highest from, the 3-year average. Are there any exceptional events that are going to be factored in that haven't been factored in yet that might change that equation?
No, we're losing the 2023 data year. So I think Missouri's throwing in a 2025 value, exceptional event one day. I don't, that's not even good.
So no exceptional events from last year.
There could be, but not that would be regulatorily significant, like it
Okay.
would add up to us.
Not not that'll push that 58 up into like the
Okay,
70s
that's
or
what I wanted to
something.
to confirm. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now we're going to go to our next favorite topic, PM 2.5. I imagine that Michael Leslie will be just 10, 15 minutes of talking on this one, right?
No, this is all the we there was a request by DOJ to vacate the PM 2.5 standard. So, I mean,
they're not going to defend the lawsuit.
Yeah.
They basically said the plaintiffs are correct. We give up.
Yeah, and that's pretty much all we know, and we haven't
Does
really
it have to
heard
go
that
through
much.
rulemaking though again I mean, you can't just say you lost the lawsuit and that's the end of it because I think the judge hasn't ruled on the lawsuit, right?
Well, I think the judge could just vacate that rulemaking, and
And
then
then that would be
it's
effective
essentially
then.
gone. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So for now, we don't have to worry, or I wouldn't say worry, we don't have to do anything at CMAP regarding PM 2.5. No changes.
Yes, I would say that is correct. I know you're itching to do hotspot modeling.
Oh
but
yeah, we can't wait to do those hotspots.
And Mike, was it kind of a surprise that that wasn't going to be a rulemaking to uh, reconsider the standard and went for the
it was a surprise to everybody in our office, and we
okay.
learned through media.
I kind of thought it was going to be there is the option for another year. So PM 2.5 it's still on the books until there is a vacature, right? Do we expect to see from US EPA and this sorry this didn't really get into conformity or the purpose of
No, I
this
think
meeting.
it's related.
Do we expect to see from US EPA an action saying we are going to take that the next year to we don't have sufficient information to make designations because the designations should be happening January.
Yeah, yeah. I honestly, I don't think anybody in our shop has what's going to happen in the process. What the next
And
step's
if
going
you
to be.
don't make the designations, is that going to start more litigation then?
Sure.
Well,
Okay.
but there is the option to say that we need another year to figure out. I mean,
Yeah, to
that's
assess.
right in
Yeah.
the act. So I kind of thought we'd see that, just kind of a announcement that we're going to take the extra year. And I thought that was going to give US EPA time to probably do a rulemaking, to do a reconsideration. But I suppose if there's
So
no designations coming, how long is there until US EPA can be sued for not making the designations? Is it generally 6 months late or?
Yeah, I don't have a sense of what that time frame would be. Would it be in the spring? Would it be, I mean, it's not like uh, a failure to act. I think.
Right. But a vacature could be anytime,
Sure.
and we don't really have a time frame.
So is there a dual track going on, or is it just all in the court and whatever the court does, whether if they vacate it, that's the end of it, and there's not a separate rulemaking reconsideration underway?
Not that we're aware of.
Okay, fair enough.
My understanding is that there's multiple scenarios that could play out, right? And I don't know, Rory, do you plug into NACA in this in any of the discussions there? They've been talking about these different scenarios that could happen. Not obviously we don't know which one's actually going to work, but there seems to be multiple plans lined up by the administration to try to get rid of this. Obviously, the first is vacatur, where they can just like wipe it off the books and move on. Anticipating that there's going to be pushback to that, there seems to be like tiers of plans that could happen. But they're trying to go through the quickest and most efficient in their eyes way to get rid of it right now.
Okay. But bringing it back to CMAP and what we're required to do, we would have been in a non-attainment area if nothing, if things had been the way that when the rule was put out there, if that had proceeded as um, intended. Now there's obviously changes in what's being done at the federal level. From CMAP's perspective, there's nothing we need to be doing. There's nothing we need to be planning for. We're just kind of on pause and wait and see how things play out. Is that fair to say, Michael?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Put up. I think that that's good enough for now. I'm going to turn it over now to my colleague, Jen. Um, we have a new plan, as I've mentioned a few times. Through that plan, there's going to be some changes from how we do some stuff and how we both look at large-scale projects and how we look at future large-scale projects. And Jen's going to be the one who's going to walk us through how we're doing that at CMAP. So, Jen, I'll turn it over to you.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Um, so first, just some updates on where we are in our process. We are right now are evaluating and working on our draft fiscal constraint proposal for the regional capital projects, which they were formerly our regionally significant projects. We changed the name to capture a little bit more in terms of type of projects and make sure we weren't causing confusion with the air quality conformity term of regionally significant project. As Russell said, we had changed. We're capturing more projects in our regional capital projects than we had in the past. And I know we talked about this a little bit in a past meeting where we're capturing more of the arterial projects, so not just projects that cost a certain amount, but some of the lower cost projects where they are adding lanes of at least a mile or more. That's the biggest change in what we're capturing. So we collected the projects in the spring, got our list together, evaluated the projects with 12 evaluation metrics that we had put together. One of those included emissions using our travel demand model and the data from Moves 4. None of the projects on their own had any significant impact on emissions. I think the biggest was region-wide a 0.3% in any of the pollutants that we measured. So no significant single project impacts there, either positive or negative. And then in the fall, we reviewed all of the metrics that we had put together a draft prioritization of these projects, and then our next step will be to present to our transportation committee which projects we will be able to fiscally constrain based on our financial forecast for revenues and expenditures over the long range plan, and also what projects we plan to highlight in the plan as priorities for the region. And then, as Russell said, we'll take that fiscal constraint list and the non-exempt projects from that and do air quality conformity this spring before the plan is adopted in October of 2026. And our list we have 136 regional capital projects on our list. 26 of those already have committed funds, and some may actually be completed before the plan's adopted. So we're kind of just tracking those and making sure if they continue on, we acknowledge them as existing projects in the plan. But none of those will be unconstrained, and all of those are projects that have already been conformed. So there's not much to do with those projects. Of the other 110, 65 are not exempt from air quality conformity based on my own rough review. Russell still needs to confirm that and review that number. And most of those have already been conformed. So there's not a lot of new projects. We'll have to make updates and reconform all those projects, but shouldn't have a significant impact on our overall conformity. One other change that we're making with this plan is our amendment process. We're trying to be more diligent with our tracking of changes to these projects and also create a simpler, more fluid process for our partners when they do need to make amendments. We had added the ability in past plans, I think it was first in Go to 2040, where we added the ability to make an amendment to the plan in between plan cycles, just noting that there were projects that needed this ability to get added to the plan as things change, funding or project plans. So now we're just adding more details to that process, making sure it's more clear for our partners. What's the timeline? How much time do we need to evaluate the project? What steps will they need to go through to get into the plan? And also being more clear about when a project that is an RCP but has a significant change, what that project needs to do. So if you're conformed and fiscally constrained as an RCP, but your cost doubles, we need to re-fiscally constrain you, and communicating that and what would the timeline and process be for that. And I can quick share my screen to show the procedures that we are proposing for that. And now I cannot remember where.
I think it's on the bottom. There's the green button. Do it. I don't know.
Oh,
Doug, do
yes.
I have to make you a co-host or are you good?
There we go. Nope, I got it. All right. So here are you seeing that?
I'm not seeing anything yet. Ah, there we go.
There we go. So the first column is just highlighting if you have a very small change, you're already an RCP in the RTP, but you need to update something in the tip, you just follow the tip amendment process as it already exists today.
Yeah, and Jen, can I stop you for 1 second?
Yes.
Just to provide context and why it's coming here is this is a change. Right now, all the stuff is handled either as a regular tip amendment or a major, or we have to amend the regional transportation plan. We had to amend it a couple of times at the beginning when we first adopted onto 2050. There were some IDOT projects and a famous project from Elon Musk, a tunnel project that some of you may remember. We haven't had to do anything lately, but we are changing our procedure from just doing a major plan amendment or a tip amendment, and we're adding a third option now.
Yes, so this major amendment column at the end here on the right is roughly what we had been using in the past when there was a new project that came up. Although we're trying to capture a little bit more, so a significant cost change, if you double your project cost, you would be considered a major amendment. And then adding more opportunities. In the past, we described it as you can do this one time per year in March with our MPO policy committee reviewing the proposal. And now we're proposing that they can do it at any of the 4 MPO policy committees, meetings that occur throughout the year. So whatever the timing is when they need the change, we'll work with them and set up that timeline. And then similar to before, recommending that they get us the information 6 months in advance of the meeting so that we have the time to review. The new step here is a minor amendment. So for a new RCP that's a non-capacity project, we're giving them a shorter time frame and letting them do it more often and just through our transportation committee rather than having to go to the MPO policy committee meeting. So if it's a state of good repair project that is an RCP because of the cost, we're giving them simpler procedures. And then also capturing in here capacity projects that have a cost change that's small. And then it is noted here, air quality conformity, if that is required for the project, that adds to, sorry, excuse me. That adds to the timeline so that they would need to account for the fact that that typically happens 2 times per year. So they would have to get those procedures completed before they can present to either of our committees to get that project request reviewed. And Russ, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, let me add some stuff that I think that this committee needs to be aware of. So if there is, so let's say we're doing what we just did today at the beginning of the agenda, where we had the conformity amendment. Let's say there is either a minor amendment or a major amendment that also involves a project that has to go through conformity. Those projects have to be voted on individually. They're not right now. The conformity amendment is all the projects that were submitted for this conformity amendment. They get voted on as a group, almost like the equivalent of a consent agenda. Um, and we don't individually vote on each project. What we would have to do for conformity, and we had to do this for the plan amendments, we had to do conformity twice. So in a hypothetical, there is a new project that is being proposed that has to go through the conformity process. It is an RCP. We would, if we were doing this at the same time as we were doing conformity, we would run conformity for all the projects on the conformity amendment. Then we would run conformity again, but now include the RCP, kind of almost like stacked upon it. And then there would be a vote at the Transportation Committee and the MPO meeting on the conformity amendment, similar to the one that's been presented today, and then another vote on the conformity amendment plus the RCP. That way, if the RCP isn't approved, the tip is still conformed and the plan is still conformed. We kind of have to We've had to do this before when there is a plan amendment. It does double the amount of model runs we have to do. Typically, there is little to no emissions difference, just like there was when we evaluated all the RCPs. There was pretty much no emissions at a regional scale that you can see any one project having. But from a procedural standpoint, there is a big difference. And we need to make sure that everything that's in the tip is conformed, and we can't have the whole tip not be conformed because one project wasn't voted or approved for whatever reason. It may not be approved and having nothing to do with conformity itself, but it will be um, go through the process as an individual project. I hope I'm saying that in a way that makes sense. The way that I would look at it is it's a stacking process. So the first thing that we would ask a committee to approve is the regular conformity tip amendment. The next thing we would ask them to approve is you've now approved this conformity amendment. We're amending that conformity amendment with this new RCP project. Whether it's what we would call a minor or a major amendment is a little bit irrelevant in terms of the process. But we would have to actually do two votes, and one would be amending the conformity amendment to include this new RCP. I want to make sure everybody understands that and that everybody's okay with that. It's what we've done in the past, and it's really the only way to kind of keep things distinct in case something doesn't get approved. So, John Paul, this would really be more in your court, and if Mark Kane was here, it would be in his court. But I'd like to hear, John Paul, what you had to say. Um,
Sorry about that. My connection froze there for probably the last 30, 45 seconds. So
all the good stuff I said on here.
yeah, the recap there. But as the chart that was brought up on the screen, from what I'm hearing, this is still in development in terms of kind of the qualifiers for the minor amendment, and that the process that's being proposed moving forward is consistent with past analysis for prior and current MTPs. With one question that I had is with the minor amendment. Recognizing that this is still in development, are there certain thresholds, criteria that are being worked out as to what is identified as a minor cost change and then minor scope change? And will those also be made available, I'll call it down the road, as part of this discussion?
Yes, there are. I think I don't have it open at the moment, but I can slide it. We have a cost threshold that we're putting together. It has been edited since this slide, but roughly we're giving them what's your total cost that's in the RTP now, and what's the percent change for what you're putting in there now. And I think this has been changed to if it's over 90% for any cost level, it's a major amendment, and then regrouping these, but then look at the total cost. So if it's under 100 million and it's 50% or less, it's a tip amendment, things like that.
Okay.
Scope changes Usually I think those will be captured with the cost change, but we are defining if it's an ad lane project and you're doubling the length of the ad lane or adding a mile or more, things like that, that would make it either a minor or major amendment. And we have thresholds for that that we are proposing to our resource group and transportation committee in December.
Thank you.
Yeah. And we can share, we have a draft memo going out. I can coordinate with Russell and we can just send that memo out. Russell, if that makes sense, or we can wait till we meet again.
Well, what we'll do is, um, once things are finalized, we'll share with everybody here. What I want to make sure everybody understands is that our amendment process requires um, each project that goes through our amendment process, if it's a non-exempt project and is required to go through conformity, we'll go through conformity as an individual project. Typically, we do everything as a group of projects like we did at the conformity amendment that was discussed at the top of the agenda. We will still do that, but the RCP, if it's going through the amendment process, will be added to that as an individual project analysis, for lack of a better word. So it's what we've done in the past. We're not changing that. It does create more work for staff, but it's the cleanest way to make sure that the tip is not impacted by the vote of any one specific RCP amendment. So hopefully that's clear to everybody. It's not a change from how we've done amendments in the past. We are doing amendments differently, but our process for the conformity aspect of it is going to be the same, where we do multiple conformity analysis, one for the tip and one for the RCP amendment. Okay. I'm not hearing any issues with that. I don't know, IDOT, I don't know, Jason, or if you wanted to speak on behalf of IDOT, if you feel comfortable doing that or not.
Um, as far as what we were discussing, I don't have anything to add to that. And certainly if you have like that PowerPoint, I can share that with Chris too, but I don't have anything to add. Or at least that slide on the PowerPoint.
Okay. So we do have, in terms of the RCPs, which are our major capital projects, the big ones, there are some new ones that'll have to go through conformity. Surprisingly, I think my initial glance of this is most of the road projects are already in the tip. There are a number of new transit projects. Would you say that, Jen? I think there that will have to go through conformity, some rail line extensions and some enhancements to service and what have you, that might qualify.
Yeah, it's largely transit projects that are not already conformed that are on the list, although several of those are proposed for being unconstrained, so then they won't.
Yeah, so we'll see how it plays out. But of the new projects that are not already in the tip that have not gone through conformity, it does seem like most of those are transit at this time. So that is interesting to note. And you guys should know that. We will be working with the transit agencies, just as a side note, to try to get a better handle on the electrification of their bus fleets, so that we can better represent that through the AVFT tool that we talked about in the future. Okay. Any more questions about our amendment process or what we got going on for our regional capital projects, capacity projects? All right. If not, we're going to move to the next item. So we have a new ETIP database platform. Through that ETIP database platform, we are able to capture modeling data in a way that's a little bit different. What I'm going to do now is share my screen for one of the projects that it actually is on the conformity amendment. Let's see. So Kane County is thing is widening this. So they have a project on I-90 and Randall Road, and they are widening the Randall Road section. They're adding a lane in each direction, and they are also going to be redoing some of the interchange component to it. This is now how our information for modeling looks like. What we have changed is we are capturing information by direction. So these fields, I could edit this, I could unsubmit it and edit it if I wanted to, but we can, instead of saying bi-directional, if there is a lane being added north but not being added in the south leg for Randall Road, we can change that to the north leg and the south leg and put those in separately so that our model can better reflect that. In the past, in our previous platform, we did not have any ability to separate out the directions that improvements were being made. We have also added, so this is the typical modeling information, the length. Is it modeling? Obviously, yes. How many lanes did it have? How many will it have? This is in each direction. So this one currently has 2 lanes in each direction. It'll have 3 lanes in each direction. Each lane is 12 feet. The lane width does matter. What's the posted speed? That's not changing. It already has traffic signals out there. That's not changing. So it has signal interconnects. Um, it's not applicable to this project, but other projects that are adding lanes or removing lanes, which we've had a number of bicycle pedestrian projects that are removing lanes and putting in bicycle and pedestrian accommodations. Sometimes there might be parking. And we are now asking for parking information. Is there on-street parking? What's the direction? Is it horizontal? Is it vertical? Are there time restrictions? Can they not park during rush hour? Can they not park overnight or on weekends? Stuff of that nature. And we are capturing that through our eTip platform, and we were not able to do that in the past. So this is an addition, an enhancement to how we're capturing some modeling information. Also, if there's any pricing involved, like tolling or things of that nature, we can capture that. And if there's truck restrictions, this is also new. So that affects, the flow on that link in the model. If trucks aren't allowed, we would be able to capture that, and that would change how the model calibrates the VMT and things of that nature. We also have all the regular stuff, but what I want to show you here is, so this is what it looks like right where they're adding some capacity. There's also going to be a new traffic signal at Randall Road and Technology Drive, along with some additions to the number of through lanes in that area, and a new interchange. So they're redoing some of the interchanges, and we can't capture those in the tip all that well. So we have a way to add descriptions. So the ramp from southbound Randall Road to eastbound I-90, and then we also have attachments that we can put into a tip project. And it has all the drawings and the plans. And so we can supplement what's in the tip with the attachments and give that to our modeling team so that the travel demand model captures both the information that's in the tip. And if we need additional information, it has the ability to download that and make sure that our model accurately reflects the project. So our new tip is really, it's a lot of enhancements in terms of what we can do from the modeling standpoint. It is brand new. We just started using this eTip platform in October. We will be able to tweak it, maybe add things to it, take things away, whatever it is, keep enhancing our representation of projects in the eTip database as we get more familiar with it and we can make changes. But the changes that we did make when we went to this new platform are adding truck restrictions and on-street parking information. So we already have made some changes just because we switched to the new platform. I will say one of the things that IDOT is doing, I'll stop sharing my screen now. So this eTip platform, IDOT has actually made it available for all the MPOs in Illinois. So they'll all be able to capture information about projects like this, whether they want to or not. They'll have that opportunity as they start to roll this out and make more use of it. So Metro East, which I know some of us here work with, they have the same eTip platform that we have. They might have a little bit different nuance about how they capture project information in some of the fields, but they'll be able to literally export the data, which is what we do. We run a script, gets it ready for import into our travel demand model, and that's how the projects get imported into our travel demand model. We literally export it, run a script, and then import it into the travel demand model. And then the travel demand model results get exported and used for emissions modeling. So it's a nice process that we have for capturing the tip information. We don't have to do it kind of like off books or on the side. What you see in the tip is primarily what you'll see in the travel demand modeling stuff. I don't know if anybody here, if Doug or anybody wants to add to that. because the Doug runs our ETIP platform in terms of the behind the scenes stuff. But we do have the ability to kind of keep updating it, correct, Doug?
Oh yeah. I don't think I have anything to add at this
Okay.
point.
So that's our ETIP platform. That was the last major item on the agenda. We have a couple minutes left, so if any agencies have something they'd like to bring up or share with the group, now is a good time to do that. I know, Michael, you're back on camera. Did you have something you'd like to share?
No, no, I was just prepping for the end of the meeting.
Fair enough. Oh, everybody's coming back for the grand finale. Okay. Rory, anything you'd like to do or add?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Have anything extra?
Oh, one thing I do want to bring up. I was supposed to bring this up and I forgot about it, but I just looked at my notes. All right. So this is an important discussion that we need to have. CMAP buys the vehicle data right now, and we process it for everybody and we share it, and we're happy to continue to do that. We bought it in May last year. We have a 3-year agreement with the Illinois Secretary of State to get it annually. The question is, when do we want it? For instance, do we want it at the end of December so it reflects an entire year? Do we want to keep doing it at the same time in May that we did it before so that we have good year after year after year kind of flow of the data? Is there some specific time of the month that would be better represented, so to speak, of the entire year? So right now we got the data in May, but we call it the 2025 data, but it's not really the whole year. But it is part of the year and it is in 2025. And, you can't really call it the 2024 data because it has 2025 stuff in it. So because we're all using the data that CMAP provides, I think it's incumbent upon all of us to kind of weigh in on what month do you think CMAP should try to get the data from? The reason we got it in May is we finally got the agreement that, and Rory knows this, it took forever for us to it took almost 2 years to get this agreement ironed out with the Secretary of State. So as soon as it's ironed out, we went and got the data as soon as we could because we didn't know if there'd be other hiccups, so to speak. That doesn't mean that we have to keep doing it in May, but right now that's what we're looking at doing is every May. But if another month makes more sense, I think now is the time to kind of weigh in. We have not bought the data for the next year, so we can get it anytime between May and the end of the year. So what do you guys think?
I don't know if there's, I mean, it's going to be a marginal kind of difference in the fleet. I think the the quality of the data is so much better than, just default that I don't know that 1 month would be more representative. I mean, if you get it late in the year and I mean, that is the data that you have for all of, 2026 or 2025. But then, it's just what's our base year and what's our out years. I don't know that it makes that much difference to me.
Okay.
I guess I would just defer to your expertise on what would make you.
Michael, do you have anything, any insight you can give us on what might be a good way to
No,
do?
no, I mean, maybe, Mark's still on from Ladco. I mean, summer, it seems like summer would be good, but
Like the default data that's in Moose, we don't know what month that's pulled from.
no, we don't. I don't.
I thought it was July.
Yeah.
I thought it was July, and that's what
Is that when they
EPA.
processed it, or is that when they pulled it from?
That's when they. That's what we're told that's when they pull it from.
Okay. So, I mean, and so that is
So
a
kind of the
mid-year.
idea is it reflects the summer.
Yeah.
It affects. It looks like what the summer period is.
Okay. I mean, do you have any opinions, Mark? I know you're not a big fan of the registration data, but that is what we're using.
It is what we have to use. Yeah, there's not much of a
So
choice.
if we're going to use it, is there a
Yeah,
month that you
I
would think
think
makes sense?
stick with what you've used traditionally, which is that sort of May timeframe. I think it's reflective of as reflective of the summer, and you're staying consistent with past methods. So I think that works.
All right. I will say the Illinois Secretary of State has told me in the past, they didn't tell me this time, but they have told me in the past that if you want to have comparable data, you kind of have to pull it the same month every year. There are large fluctuations, and that way you're not trying to understand why is it so different from one year to the next if you got it in different months? So keeping it on the same annual cycle, there is something to be said for doing that. I know I saw Mark, I seen you nodding your head there.
Yes, I think you're right.
All right, we will go for May then. All right. With that, we are at time. I don't want to keep anybody any longer than we need to. I want to wish everybody a happy holiday season. We will be on call for future meetings. Likely the next one will be in May when we're conforming the RTP, the Regional Transportation Plan. And if something more to pop up, we can meet as needed. I don't see any reason right now that would necessitate having a meeting between now and May, but it's there if we need it. All right. Anybody else have anything they'd like to contribute? Otherwise, we're done.
Go Bears.
Go Bears. There you go. Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Thanks.